motto of Genesis Gold Group. As Americans, we work hard every day to provide for our families and ensure their future. But with the uncertainty facing our economy, it is more important than ever to safeguard your wealth and protect your retirement savings. Educated investors look to safe haven assets to shield themselves from the economic storm. Tangible assets like gold and silver can provide stability, security, and most importantly, peace of mind. In 1997, the Taxpayer Relief Act allowed Americans to hold physical precious metals like gold and silver in their IRAs for the first time. Today, Genesis Gold Group helps our clients transfer existing IRAs, 401ks, and other retirement accounts into physical gold and silver, tax and penalty free. With thousands of satisfied clients, 5-star reviews, and fully accredited with the Better Business Bureau, our experienced team is here to help you navigate the process, start to finish. Now is the time to educate yourself on the importance of a diversified portfolio, including tangible assets like gold and silver. Call now to receive our free wealth protection kit and digital dollar defense guide. Call now and we'll include our extremely popular silver prepper bar free when you open your account. Add it to your IRA or have it sent to your home. Call Genesis Gold Group today at 800-200-GOLD. Prepper bar only available through Genesis Gold Group.
You're listening to the J.D. Rucker Show. Let's begin. Well, it's Columbus Day, and we are, of course, going to call it Columbus Day because it is Columbus Day. It is not Indigenous Peoples Day. It is nothing like that. Whatever Kamala Harris and her cohorts want to call it, they're wrong. It's Columbus Day. Let's just establish that. Up front, crazy weekend. There was allegedly an assassination attempt against Donald Trump, a third one. As it turns out, I would say that chances of that being the actual case are pretty close to nil. It's funny because when I saw the story, okay, we broke the story very early on, like early in the day before corporate media or Fox News or anybody else had it. We had the story up there over at thelibertydaily.com and americafirstreport.com. And I remember thinking to myself that I wonder if this is going to get covered. And because it wasn't like, okay, so there's the various degrees. You had 1 degree, the first one where Thomas Crooks actually was able to get some shots off, kill somebody, and wound President Trump. You had the second attempt, which was an alleged attempt. I still don't believe that it was necessarily an attempt on Trump's life. I think it might have been a distraction of some sort. But you know, that one where the crazy dude, you know, he had his gun ready to go at the golf course, and then nothing. He didn't get to fire a shot. Praise God for that, if it was actually a real assassination attempt. Now you had one where the guy gets stopped before he's actually able to get in. And when I saw the name later on, so I didn't have the name because we had the story out so early. I didn't have the name, but then I saw the name, and it was Vem Miller. I was like, that name rings a bell. I know this guy. How do I know this guy? And I started thinking, I did a search. I was like, oh, wow, okay, yeah. That's how I know this guy. And then my good friend Mindy Robinson put out a post on Facebook. I think she also put it out on X, basically saying, I'm not buying it. Started looking into it some more. Started noticing that despite this sheriff coming out and saying that, you know, he's pretty sure that his deputy stopped an assassination attempt, Vem got let out on a $5,000 bond. Generally not what you would consider to be, you know, an appropriate bond for a potential presidential assassin, or even a presidential candidate assassin, or former president assassin, or whatever you want to call him. That didn't seem to jibe. And then, of course, there's the fact that he's a Trump supporter. Okay, he's been a Trump supporter for a few years now. He wasn't always a Trump supporter. He was a Barack Obama guy. And then at one point he was actually considering backing Bernie Sanders. But then once he jumped on the Trump train, he never left. Okay. He's been very pro-Trump. He was at the RNC. He's had his picture taken with Vivek Ramaswamy and Donald Trump Jr. and some other people. And, you know, it is what it is. Mindy knows him very well. So we're trying to get Mindy on the show. I was hoping to have her on the show today, but so far, no luck there. And if we can get Mr. Miller on the show as well, I would love to have his perspective. Was he really trying to assassinate Donald Trump, as is being reported by some? Thankfully, corporate media is toning it down a bit more on this one, maybe because it was an alleged assassination attempt. Maybe they don't want to get any. They think this is just going to help Trump more, and it probably would. But anyway, we'll get to the truth. Lord willing, we will get to the truth, hopefully, with tomorrow's show. In the meantime, I'm still going to keep trying and see what we can get out there. We got a good show for you today. We are going to be talking about, of course, Columbus Day here in just, a couple minutes. But I saw some. It's funny because Friday we do obviously Feel Good Friday, and I try to get some positive videos out there, and I didn't get nearly as many. I think there was too many that were negative. So, yeah, sorry to bum you out for the weekend. But I do have one video that I got to show you. This might be my favorite video by Mr. Reagan that I've seen so far, and he does those AI videos that get the attention of certain communist leaders out here in California. He does those, but this one wasn't one of those, and I think it was spot on. I think it was brilliant. Before we get to the first story, I want to highlight real quick my good friends over at MyPillow, mypillow.com/JDR, promo code JDR. A lot of people have been abandoning MyPillow, and it bugs me to death. Okay, it really does, because it's like they were there. Oh, when everybody was buying My Pillows, all these conservative show hosts that's all they could talk about. Now all of a sudden they're not talking about it at all. Well, I'm going to keep talking about it because I do believe in Mike Lindell's mission. I believe in the products at MyPillow, and that's why if you go to mypillow.com/JDR and use promo code JDR, you will be able to get the maximum possible discount. I mean, just the top tier. You don't have to watch all those super awesome show hosts. You don't even have to get a promo code from Mike Lindell himself. You can just use promo code JDR and get the maximum discount. Let's pull up the first story. Well, it's Columbus Day, or as the Democrats like to call it, what is it? Indigenous Peoples Day, Inglorious Bastards Day. I don't know what they call it. They call it something weird, but it is Christopher Columbus, the day that we celebrate his quote-unquote discovery of America. Now, we can debate history all day. Did Christopher Columbus really discover America? Was he really this, that? I don't care. It's tradition, and when it comes to tradition, I generally like it. I'm a traditional guy, I guess you could say. I married a trad wife, as they like to say, and but on Columbus Day, there's been a lot of attacks already, before, during, and I'm sure there will be attacks afterwards, from Democrats, in particular Kamala Harris. Article over at hotair.com. Tone Deaf, Democrats diss Columbus Day. This is by David Strom, whose articles I've been reading more and more lately. I've got to contact this guy and find out what he's all about, because I think he does a great job. I think he does very well. Kamala Harris has many weaknesses as a candidate. We all know the word salad problem, of course, and her connection to Biden is another connection. But a quick look at the polling shows a sleeper issue. People worry that she is too left-wing and trying to hide the fact. Duh. They worry about that for obvious reasons. She is a radical leftist who has spent a lifetime pushing woke ideology on citizens. While running for president in 2019, Harris made clear that she is all in on decolonizing America, a movement that has picked up steam and dominated left-wing activism for years. During a campaign stop in New Hampshire, she denounced Columbus and the colonization of the Americas, calling for renaming today's holiday Indigenous Peoples Day. Let's not play that. You guys, I'm sure you've probably seen it, and if you haven't, you're not going to see it here, because there's just no purpose there. She continues this theme while vice president, characterizing the complex history of European and Native histories as a simple story of oppressors and oppressed. Anybody familiar with the history knows that Cortez was only able to conquer what is now Latin America due to massive help from indigenous people who joined the Spanish in order to liberate themselves from a murderous regime. And again, more videos of Kamala, which we're not going to play. We need not debate the history and the moral ambiguity of Columbus's legacy to understand that embracing the denigration of European culture is a politically stupid move. The left hates Western culture and Western achievements, and Kamala Harris has embraced the left's narrative for her entire career. Gretchen Whitmer, Harris's campaign co-chair, reinforces this fact by apologizing to Native Americans for the existence of America. Not that she is much interested in actually giving back to Michigan, to the indigenous tribes, but she embraced the whole Europeans bad narrative, and I'm not going to play her either. We're gonna save you guys. I'm gonna try to limit the idiocy from the left today and not play as much of it. Play as little of it as possible, actually. Tim Walz has in the past gone further. He applauded BLM and Antifa rioters tearing down a statue of Columbus that stood proudly outside the Minnesota Capitol. As with his other actions during the George Floyd riots, he sided with the rioters and allowed the destruction of private and state property as a form of reparations to rioters. Point being is this. Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, Gretchen Whitmer, all of the radical leftists that are trying to take over this country from through this election and through whatever else they're going to do before, during, and after the election, their intention is to destroy the United States of America. They're no longer even hiding this fact. They want to tear it down, and they think they want to rebuild it. What they don't realize is that many of them, and I would say Kamala Harris falls into this category, many of them are just simply pawns of the globalist elite cabal. They think, oh, well, if we can tear down America and rebuild it under this Marxist vision, we can rebuild it with modern monetary theory, we can rebuild it with equity, inclusion, and diversity, we can rebuild. They don't care, they being the globalist elite cabal. They don't care if we rebuild it or not. Their intention is just to tear down the United States of America. What happens after that, if we get quote-unquote rebuilt and become part of their 10 regional powers that are controlled by one centralized global power, if we're part of that, fine. If we're not part of that, if we're just completely destroyed and never rebuilt, fine. They don't care. They just know that they need us out of the way to achieve their goals. And Kamala Harris is the next and possibly final step for them to achieve and realize their machinations. Viral content creator Mr. Reagan has come up with a new video, and this time it's not necessarily it's not an AI video. So for those who don't remember, Mr. Reagan is the man who made the video that Elon Musk ended up sharing, that ended up getting Gavin Newsom's panties all up in a bunch. So he decided that he wanted to try to get a law out there that stopped artificial intelligence from ever being used to try to sway idiotic Democrats. And so there's this long court battle that is currently playing out. Well, this next video is not AI driven. This is actually just created by Mr. Reagan, and it's absolutely awesome, and I have some commentary about it. But let's cut straight to the chase. Let's play the video first.
I used to be a Trump guy. I was MAGA all the way. But then Kamala started to make a lot of sense.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden, but also I'm not Donald Trump.
I realized for the first time that Kamala was right. She's not Joe Biden. And she's also not Trump. So I started to pay attention a little more. And the more I listened, the more I liked.
Does the U.S. have no sway over Prime Minister Netanyahu?
The work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
So profound. Kamala will say absolutely nothing, but she will express this nothingness as if it is the most profound thing anyone has ever said. And that, I think, is what it truly means to sound presidential.
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day. Every day it is time for us to agree.
It's time to do what we've been doing, and that time is every day. Wow. But what really sold me on the genius of Kamala is how brilliantly she dodges questions that she doesn't like.
Do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid.
Wow. Kamala has a truly astonishing way of expressing herself.
That's on top of everything else that we know and don't know yet. based on what we've just been able to see. And because we've seen it or not doesn't mean it hasn't happened.
So come on, guys, let's all be unburdened by what has been.
Imagine, if you will, a world devoid of common sense, a world in which the nonsensical ramblings of an inarticulate moron are actually convincing, a world in which men vote for Kamala Harris. If you find yourself in such a world, take a moment to look around. You may have just wandered into the Twilight Zone.
Mr. Reagan.
It's funny stuff. You know, it's funny, when I was watching the first time, I was thinking, it sounds like the Twilight Zone, and then it ends with the Twilight Zone. Great stuff. Good stuff, Mr. Reagan, or whatever your real name is. I actually looked up his real name one time. I'm just going to stick with Mr. Reagan. It's easier to remember. So it does bring up a good point. I know, obviously, that's a parody video, but here's the challenge that, you know, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, you've got, on one hand, you've got men lurching towards Donald Trump in droves. I think the last time I checked those up, they were up like 16%, or Trump was up like 16% among men. And then you have Kamala Harris, who is attracting female voters, and she's at like plus 14 over Trump amongst female voters. What does this say, though? Because he's right. Mr. Reagan is absolutely correct that Kamala Harris is an idiot. I mean, that's basically what the video was supposed to portray, and it did a very good job, and it didn't have to manipulate anything. So Gavin Newsom can't say a word. All Mr. Reagan did was use Kamala's own words, her own word salads, her own attempts to answer questions, which she cannot do unless she's given the question and the answer ahead of time, whether it's through a remote microphone in her ear, a Bluetooth mic, or whether it's just, hey, you know, here's your answer to the question. They sent us the question. Here's the answer. Memorize this. Practice it a couple of dozen times until it sticks in your brain. And then when they ask the question, trigger, you know, that answer and just say it. You know, recite your line, actress Kamala, which is really all she is. So here's my question: women, and I know that there are. I would argue that there are more women that watch my show than men. I mean, what woman wouldn't want to watch me, right? So, but no, I mean, here's the question that you need to ask your Kamala loving friends, whoever, because you probably have one. I mean, let's face it, you probably have 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 fellow females in your circle, whether it's family or friends or coworkers or whatever, that are supporting Kamala. Ask them, do they really know her? And if they say that they really do, then ask them, how could they possibly consider voting for her? I mean, she will, if she is elected or selected, or however you want to put it, if she is inserted into the Oval Office, she will be an absolute embarrassment for the female gender. She will not represent women well, historically speaking. Or, I mean, we could say, well, you know, history books are going to say this about her. My thought is this: if she is installed into the Oval Office, then there will be no history books to be written about her, because the United States of America will no longer exist. For at least the last, 2 years. Let's see, it might have been as early as 2021, but at the very least in 2022, we started talking about and noticing and talking about all of the crazy things that were happening with this food supply. I'd be like, hey, did you notice there's been like a sharp increase in food production plants that are just sort of burning up, it's getting sabotaged, blowing up in some cases? And what about all the chickens that are getting culled? And what about all the cows that are mysteriously dying? It's like somebody's attacking your food. I mean, that seemed to be the case, and it has continued to be the case for a long time. This is one of the reasons that the food prices have gone up so much higher, so much faster than other things. Yes, we're experiencing mega inflation, but food is getting it hit hard. It's one of the reasons that we even launched my company in the first place, and we were very happy to have done that. But everything happened, like everything, you can only fight off the inevitable for so long, and so we are, in the very, very near future, not sure what day or anything like that, but very soon, we are going to have to raise our prices. And so as a result of this, and I actually have a meeting I'm not going to say when, but I have a meeting to discuss all of this and how much we're going to raise prices and all that stuff. But in the meantime, as owner of the company, I can still offer what I believe to be a good, awesome deal. So go to worldviewbeef.com. And once you're there, just use promo code JDR. No. Yeah. Use promo code JDR. To get the maximum discount. As of right now, as I'm recording to this episode, we are at 30%, and we're doing that ahead of the anticipated price hike. So do yourself a favor, do your family a favor, do everybody a favor, and go there now and use promo code JDR. So I've never been a fan of Reince Priebus. I thought he was a horrible chair for the RNC, which wasn't that big of a deal. I thought that he was a terrible chief of staff, second only to John Kelly as far as Trump's worst chief of staff, and of course he was the first. But I thought that his real sin was in his participation, his heavy participation in the transition team for Trump's first administration. He is arguably the most responsible for bringing in rhinos and neocons into the administration, and for that's to me an unforgivable sin. But he did, now that he's out there in the real world, sort of. They call it the post-politician version of real world. He's out there going on these various panels. He went on ABC News over the weekend and dropped some truth bombs on him, and they were apoplectic. I mean, they were just beside themselves listening to him. So you get to listen to him.
I mean, the reality is that for the first time in 32 years in this poll, it shows that Republicans are beating Democrats straight up. When you ask people a generic ballot in 32 years, it shows that Donald Trump's doing better with black voters, Hispanic voters, off the charts. But what the most important thing is, what happened last week is that what was working with female voters with Kamala Harris was that there was some feeling of joy in the air. Well, that joy is gone. She had a terrible week. She picked a pointless fight with Ron DeSantis. She was losing in the Sun Belt. And she tried to recover by going on The View, which a lot of women watch. She went on The View, you talked about it earlier, and she wanted to clarify the two most important issues that are facing these two candidates, the economy and immigration. And she bombed like Rory at the U.S. Open, and she went out there and said there was nothing she would do that would be different than Joe Biden. And she created a campaign commercial for Donald Trump. And so she's trying to recover. There is no joy in the air, and everybody knows it, and it's obvious that there is a leak in the balloon here in the Kamala Harris campaign.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm not a fan, but when he's right, he's right. Got to give kudos to those, even when they're generally wrong. Sometimes they're right, and we got to highlight that. I have a favorite line from Star Wars. Well, it's my favorite line that doesn't include Yoda, and I think it's nothing original. You're going to see the line and you'll be like, yeah, that's like everybody's favorite line, Rucker. It's a trap. Yep. Nothing original about that, but it is true. I use that line very often, and we are in the process. We're in the midst of what I believe to be another trap. It's the trap of complacency. You have corporate media and Democrats and the uniparty swamp all saying, oh, Trump's looking good. Trump's looking great. Could be a Trump victory. They're just trying to lull you into complacency, just like they did in 2020. Okay. I'm sorry, 2022 rather. During the midterm elections, it was everything in corporate media was, red tsunami, it's going to be a bloodbath. They were allowed to say bloodbath back then because Trump hadn't said it yet. It's going to be a terrible, we're going to get blah, 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 blah. And then, of course, the red tsunami didn't materialize. I'm not going to bring that up. I've discussed that ad nauseum and know it had nothing to do with abortion. But now we are faced with a push to say, Trump's going to win, Trump's going to win. In reality, okay, the true, if these polls were actually accurate, and I've discussed ad nauseum about how inaccurate they are, how they're used specifically and strictly to drive narratives, at least the external, the public polling. Yeah, their internal polling is accurate, and we'll talk about that some of the day. But as far as the external polling, it's all narrative driven. The reality on the ground is that Trump is, in my humble opinion, he's up by a mile. It's not even close. I would say there's certain red states where he's up by 30 or 40 points. I would say even in many blue states, including my good old California, I would say that he's at least tied, if not ahead. Okay, the Coachella rally that he had over the weekend, he had 100,000 people here. Now, look, I live out here, and I get to see the excitement. And I remember in 2016, everything was Hillary, Hillary, Hillary. Okay, and in 2020, bumper stickers, yard signs, everything was Biden, Biden, Biden. Right? I don't see Kamala Harris bumper stickers or yard signs anywhere right now out here in California. Now, you don't see very many Trump ones either, but that's just because people are scared that they're going to get their tires slashed or their homes are going to get egged or something. I don't know. What do the kids even do these days to deface a home? I think they actually do worse than just throw eggs at them. You know, we've got our sign, but our sign is actually up against our wall. It's on the wall, on the external wall itself, so that when people come to, if they really want to tear it down, they're going to have to get in front of my camera and tear it down face to face, like a non-coward. And of course, they are cowards, so nobody's going to do that. Anyway, point being is that reality is he's winning, but the narrative that's being built is when he was winning in 2016. And yet they were trying to build the narrative, oh, he's going to lose, and that didn't work, obviously. That false narrative failed them. So then in 2020, they jumped ahead and they still used the same basic narrative that they used, but it was a little bit more, I don't know what's the word for it, subtle, more subdued. There you go. There's a better word. 2024, right now, the narrative appears to be, oh, yay, don't worry, Republicans, you're winning. Good job. No need to go fight harder or get the truth out or get out the vote or try to stop any shenanigans that might take place. Article over at PJ Media by Matt Margolis. Even the liberal media is talking about a landslide victory for Trump. It's a trap. There you have it. It is a trap, I do believe. Mainstream media has long been a cheerleader for the Democrats. Its coverage of Donald Trump is overwhelmingly negative, while its coverage of Kamala Harris is so positive and glowing that it could blind you. The media will also give an extensive coverage to any poll that shows Harris ahead and dismiss or even ignore polls that look good for Trump. However, in the past week or so, there's been an attitude change as polls have shifted to Trump. Last week, Micah, however you pronounce her last name, Brzezinski, the co-host of Morning Joe, admitted that there's this fear that Donald Trump is poised for victory because nothing Harris has done in recent weeks has been able to move the needle in her direction. I think it's fair for Democrats, and this is Micah. Mika? Oh, it's Mika. That's right. I've heard it spoken. Mika, not Micah. Mika Brzezinski. I think it's fair for Democrats to be incredibly depressed. I think it's fair for them to be discouraged. I think it's fair for them to explore whether Kamala Harris should be doing more. Feel free to do that. These things are all legitimate. I don't know what more she can do, especially given what happened, though, in 2016, because that was a trauma for anybody who loves this country and a trauma that didn't end that day. Now, I will admit to you, okay, personally, I was there. I love this country, and I did not experience any trauma. So, fact check denied. But as far as what she's saying, she's right. Polls are showing that this is a toss-up race, and if the polls are off like they were in 2020 or 2016, the election looks really good for Trump. But the situation may be even tougher for Kamala because the mainstream media is now even talking about a potential landslide victory for Trump. A landslide victory for Trump. It's a trap. It's a trap. With just a month remaining until the election, polls in all 7 battleground states show the race within the margin of error, leaving the door open for either candidate to potentially sweep all key swing states, reports Newsweek. While Harris maintains a slim national lead. Oh my gosh, I haven't been showing this. I am so sorry. It's the trap. I fell for the trap. There we go. While Harris maintains a slim national lead of 2 to 3 points and holds the edge in 4 swing states, recent polling has shifted more favorably for Trump. Newsweek cited recent polling showing Trump ahead nationally and in the swing states. Nate Silver's election model has also shown that the momentum is clearly with Trump right now. This momentum, Newsweek says, raises the possibility of a landslide victory for Trump. A landslide victory for Trump. It's a Trump. Man, I'm overusing that, but it's true. I want to hammer home the point. Folks, again, and Trump said this before. It's funny because I've always said, pretend like we're losing by double digits. Trump actually has a better perspective. I don't watch I'll admit I don't watch a whole lot of his rallies. I cover them, right? And I get the Cliffs Notes versions. I get the highlights, so to speak, and I watch all those. But I have tried to watch more lately, obviously, because there's always the risk that somebody's going to try to kill him. So you want to catch that live if you're in media. Not catch it. It sounds like it's exciting. God forbid that this does happen. But if it does, you want to be there. You want to be watching, okay, from a journalistic perspective. So I've been paying more attention, and he's been saying, pretend like we're up by 1 point. That's it. Pretend like we're winning, but we're only up by 1 point. That mentality, that's what we need. Okay, we need the mentality of your vote matters, your neighbor's vote matters, your radical leftist professor uncle he's going to vote for sure. He's probably going to vote twice. So you need to get out there and vote. Pretend like we're up by 1 point, and that's it. And it doesn't matter what state you're in. Okay, doesn't matter. And I could say that this is important not just for getting Trump to win, but also to help the down ballot races, in particular the local races, which are so important. I argue more important than even the presidential race, but nobody's going to believe me when I say that. So, so I'll just keep saying it until it sticks, which it won't. All right, if you are watching on World of YouTube, then I will bid you adieu, and we will see you tomorrow, Lord willing. If you're watching on my Rumble channel at jdrucker.com/rumble or any of the other various places where my show appears, just stay right there. We're going to take a short break, and when we get back, we're going to keep going. Whether you've been a prepper for a long time or maybe you're just getting started, you're just looking around and thinking how crazy it is, we usually cover the basics. You get your food, you get your water, you get your ammunition. Don't forget your ammo. You get your battery chargers, solar battery chargers, or whatever. But a lot of times I think people will forget their meds, okay? Whether it's chronic meds, antibiotics, I think a lot of people don't even realize that you can stock up on that stuff. They go to the doctor, they go to the pharmacy, and the pharmacist said, oh, here's your 2 months supply or whatever. Well, you can actually stock up on a lot of these meds by going to jdrucker.com/meds. You'll talk to the good folks over at Jace Medical. They can get you a 12-month supply of certain prescription drugs. They can get you emergency meds, all sorts of good stuff, things that you may or may not need, but it's always good to have it on hand because I guarantee you, even if you don't think you need it today, you might need it in the future. jdrucker.com/meds. Blowout sale. You're so... Man, I'm so bad at these ads. Currently, there is a blowout sale happening right now over at mypillow.com/JDR. I went and checked, and there it was. Blowout sale. So I thought, you know what? Let's just promote Mike Lindell and the MyPillow product by focusing on this. And this is the standard MyPillow with promo code JDR is on sale for $14.98. Limit 10. You can only get 10 of them. I think I've got more than 10 myself. But then again, I sleep a lot. So and I sleep in multiple rooms. Who knows? Maybe you got a big family. Maybe you need 10. But you can get all 10 by going to mypillow.com/JDR. You're not just supporting MyPillow. You're not just supporting your neck. You're also supporting Mike Lindell, who is a great patriot. So check it out. jdrucker.com. No, mypillow.com/JDR. Promo code JDR. We are all very familiar with Kamala Harris's ability to mix an incredible word salad. I mean, her word salads are the best we've ever heard from any politician. She's somehow able to say absolutely nothing and extend it for however long she needs to extend it for. But unfortunately, she's never had really an area of expertise, right? Some people will say, well, but she was an attorney, she was a district attorney, she was attorney general, she's been all this other stuff. Okay, fine, except like she failed the bar exam. I wouldn't exactly call her a legal expert by any means. We have found an area of expertise for Kamala Harris, and yes, she did apply a word salad even to that.
There's this whole, I talked with somebody once who said, if you just look at where the stars are in the sky, don't look at them as just random things. If you just look at them as points, look at the constellation, what does it show you? So you just outlined it, Roland.
What does it show you?
Look, not that I'm into giving Kamala Harris or the campaign advice, but they really need to work on her hand motions. She really has the hand motions of like a podcaster, not a politician. It's all sorts of weird. But I did check my bingo card, and unfortunately, I did not have Kamala Harris, astrologist, listed on there. So I am not a winner, not of the Kamala bingo game of the day. It is par for the course, by the way, that she is currently invoking astrology as part of her campaign strategy of some sort. I don't know if that was intentional or if it was off the cuff. I don't know if she does anything off the cuff, really. She just sort of, she's told what to do, what to say, where to go, where to be, what to do, what to be, all that stuff. And so I would imagine that it's like, hey, let's normalize you to astrology buffs or something. I don't know. Moving on from astrology. Look, there have been a lot of articles and podcasts and shows ever since this story came out. I think it was about a week ago, saying that there's like 32 million Christians who are not going to be voting for Trump because they feel, they feel that he's just not good enough for them. And I've heard arguments about how we're not voting for pastor. It's a decent argument. I've heard arguments that, hey, lesser of two evils. I hate that argument, but it might apply probably pretty well here. I've heard arguments that the point of contention has been that, he's not fully pro-life, or something like that. Look, I am a pro-life absolutist. I'm as extreme as it gets. I do believe, and I wish that it was possible to have a nationwide abortion ban, 100%, no exceptions, 0 exceptions. Figure something out. In my world, there is no reason for an innocent preborn baby to be killed. Now, you might throw out some really obscure reason, but considering where we stand, for me at least, there's nothing. I mean, I remember I had this conversation with my dad. I think I was probably about 14 or 15, maybe a little older, maybe 15, 16 maybe. And I remember, it was a very uncomfortable conversation because he was talking about, look, if your mom was raped and impregnated, we would have that baby. And I'm like, at the time, as teenagers, I didn't quite understand. I'm like, yeah, but isn't that a little extreme? He's like, what did the baby do? And that was like kind of my aha moment. It's like, oh, that's a good point. If you believe that a preborn baby is alive, is a life, is a human from the moment of conception, which I do believe, then you can't consider punishing that child as somehow moral based upon what happened to the child's mother or what even could happen to the child's mother. Even in the case of a woman's, life at risk as a result of the birth, again, I'm the extremist. Look, it's a good thing that I'm not running for office because this issue would tank my chances in America. I fall on the quote unquote wrong side of the argument, right? But with that said, even as extreme as my views are, I couldn't imagine not voting for Trump. Okay? I couldn't imagine not supporting him. Do I like his federalist idea? And generally speaking, I love federalism, but not when it comes to abortion. Like I said, I want a nationwide ban. Do I like that he says leave it up to the states? No, I don't. But that's not going to stop me from voting for him because I know what the other side wants to do. And you might say that it is the lesser of two evils argument. Call it whatever you want. But to me, my message to those who are considering sitting out this election, especially if you are a Bible-believing Christian, is that if you don't want to vote for Trump, fine, don't vote for Trump. But here's what you need to do. You need to vote against abortion on demand at any stage. You need to vote against genital mutilation for children who are confused or who have been indoctrinated or brainwashed. You need to vote against these endless wars. And if you don't think that Kamala Harris is going to participate in these endless wars, then you're deluding yourself. She will get us, the United States, involved in as many wars as she possibly can. I do believe that she will be more of a warmonger than even Joe Biden has been. And Joe Biden's everything from Afghanistan to Ukraine to his dealings in the Middle East have been absolutely abysmal. I would argue that Kamala Harris will be even worse. Vote against those things. Vote against the theft of your paycheck, because that's exactly what will happen with Kamala Harris through various ways, not just through taxation either, through tremendous inflation, eventually through modern monetary theory applied to the United States economy, which we're so close already. You don't want to vote for Trump? Fine. Vote against the demise of the United States of America, if that makes you feel any better. There's a reason, actually many reasons, but there's one reason in particular that I have not identified as a Republican since after the 2016 election. The Republican Party, specifically in Washington, D.C., is at best feckless and oftentimes very destructive. They are members of the uniparty swamp. They're just on the quote-unquote right side of it, even though sometimes they're not even really considered right-leaning at all, many of them, especially in the United States Senate. In the House, you've got some pretty decent Republicans. In the Senate, you got, 2, 3 maybe? Okay, you got Ron Johnson, you got Ted Cruz, you got sort of Mike Lee, and even all three of them are pretty much questionable. Everybody else, for the most part, is awful. The most destructive senator currently is not Chuck Schumer. It's not Patty Murray. Okay, it is not Dick Durbin. It is Mitch McConnell. I'm so glad that he is leaving, but unfortunately I'm still concerned about his influence even after he's officially out of the Senate, and particularly when it comes to his control of the money. He has demonstrated over the years his unwillingness to give to anybody who does not bow to him. He controls the largest United States Senate Republican PACs in America. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, but he only gives it to people like Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, anybody who's willing to bend the knee and bow to him and bow to his uniparty swamp ideology to be the perpetual weak, feckless, ineffective, and oftentimes destructive minority wing of the U.S. Senate. Anybody who's willing to be part of that, they get money. He's got lots of money for them. But others, they do not. This is why, we've had some, actually all three of the senators that I mentioned before, they do not fall under the good graces of Mitch McConnell, and therefore they never get any money. And right now, Ted Cruz is in a very heated battle to try to retain his spot in the U.S. Senate in what's supposed to be red Texas. Texas is turning purple. George Soros is doing everything he can to turn Texas purple. Between open borders, between indoctrination, and a whole lot of money spent trying to demonize Republicans in the state, they are trying to flip Texas because they figure if they can control Texas and California, then it doesn't matter what the rest of the nation does, right? So that is, I assume, part of their plan. An article over at Independent Sentinel by M. Dowling. Mitch McConnell hasn't given Ted Cruz a penny from his $400 million fund, his war chest, his rhino, uniparty swamp, neocon war chest. According to the article, Marxist Colin Allred is running against Senator Ted Cruz and raised over $300 million in the third quarter. Cruz raised $21 million. Because of the changing demographics, Allred is only 2.7 points and at best 5 points behind Cruz. And don't forget, Cruz barely won in 2018. Mitch McConnell won't give him any money, and he controls $400 million in PACs. If Cruz was left-wing like Lisa Murkowski, who I mentioned, he'd get millions, but he's not. According to Tom Elliott, Ted Cruz called out Mitch McConnell for not giving him a penny for his reelection. And instead of reading it, let's just play. This is Ted Cruz on Fox News with Mark Levin.
The Senate Leadership Fund is controlled by Mitch McConnell. He raises hundreds of millions of dollars in that fund to assist Senate candidates. Last time you ran, it was very close, 2.5% you won. McConnell wouldn't give your campaign a plug nickel. I assume he's giving your campaign money now because he wants to control the Senate, yes?
Sadly, no, not a penny. So Mitch McConnell runs the largest Republican super PAC in the country. It has $400 million. But that super PAC is used to reward the Republican senators who obey him and to punish those who dare to stand up to him. So as you noted, 2018, I was in what was at the time the most expensive Senate race in U.S. history. I was being outspent 3-1. He had $300 million. He spent zero in Texas. I won anyway, but barely, by less than 3 points. This time around, he has $400 million. I'm being massively outspent again. Schumer's spending millions, and yet he's spent zero. And by the way, he does the same thing for any other senator. So Ron Johnson in 2016 in Wisconsin had a very tough competitive race. Mitch spent zero to support him. Ron won anyway. Mike Lee in 2022 had an unexpectedly tight race in Utah. Again, Mitch spent zero to support him because, people wonder at home, how come no Republicans stand up and have courage and stand up to Mitch and leadership? And the answer is, if you stand up and say no, it costs you 10 or 20 or 30 or even $40 million, where I'm not willing to just obey his orders, which means the only way I survive is the viewers of this show, patriots across the country, going to tedcruz.org, giving generously so that we have the resources to communicate with the voters.
Well, there you have it. He's right. He's absolutely right. And look, I've been a critic of Ted Cruz for a long time. He is amongst the closest thing to good guys that we can get in the U.S. Senate, at least for now. And one more quick note from the article. Michigan State Senator Mike Shirkey believes J6 was a setup. He added that Mitch McConnell wanted it to be a mess. If his theory is true, Mitch got his way. And I'm not going to play that video. But here's the thing. Mitch McConnell and it's not just Mitch McConnell himself. He has so much control over the Republican Party. And I know there were people, I remember I would read these blog posts and watch show hosts talking about how Mitch was really killing it in the Senate when Trump was in office. He was laying down, getting all these judges in there, and he was getting all these people confirmed, and he was, oh my gosh, he's doing so well. And I'm like, oh, you idiots. I was calling people idiots. These are conservative show hosts and conservative bloggers and stuff that I was saying they're being idiots, because here's the thing, okay? Of all the roles of the Senate Majority Leader, which is a made-up position, to be clear, it's not even in the Constitution. Speaker of the House is, Senate Majority Leader is not. That's a whole discussion for another day. But of all the roles of the Senate Majority Leader, arguably the least, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, the least intense, the least whatever. I don't want to say it's not important, because it is important, but it's not hard. In other words, getting judges, getting appointees, getting nominees, I should say, getting them through the system and confirmed is not hard. It's literally a matter of writing out a schedule. Okay? You can go to any fast food joint, find the assistant manager, and they can perfectly fulfill the role of getting justices and appointees and nominees confirmed. You literally just have to put it on the schedule. Okay, today we're going to handle these 3 judges, and let's get it on the schedule, and then let's vote on them. And if you have the majority, that's it. Okay? It doesn't require, oh my gosh, Mitch McConnell's not sitting there strategizing. How are we going to get these people confirmed? This is so hard. And it actually might be hard for him because he's an idiot. But it's not like, oh my gosh, we need to give Mitch McConnell kudos for getting, I would say that he did an okay job at best. At the easiest part of his job. When it came to anything difficult, such as getting border wall funding, such as passing legislation when he was still Senate Majority Leader, which he never wants to be. He always wants to be Senate Minority Leader. He does not want to have the majority, which is why I would say he wants Cruz to lose. He would love for Cruz to lose. It looks like Montana's going to flip red, okay? Looks like there's a good chance, it's not firm, but there's a good chance that Arizona is going to flip red, which means that they've got to they got to get some losses in there. And Texas, getting rid of Ted Cruz, getting all red in there, my gosh. As destructive as that would be for the nation, Chuck Schumer, sorry, got my idiots confused. Mitch McConnell would be giddy if Ted Cruz were to lose. The two best places to keep up with my work are my X account at JD Rucker or my Substack, jdrucker.substack.com, jdrucker.substack.com. Here's a story that, pardon me, the pit of despair. Here's a story that, you know, with all the things, and obviously today is another rip on Kamala Day, a rip on the Uniparty swamp in general, but Kamala in particular. This story caught me a little bit by surprise because we have all of these various things we can talk about Kamala Harris. We can say about her intelligence, her lies, her chameleon-like style of everything that she does, but I did not have plagiarism as something that she would do. You know, I thought that she comes up with her own idiotic ideas, and not at least somebody else does, comes up with the idiotic things that she says and does for her, but I didn't realize that she was actually stealing them from other people. But according to Christopher Rufo, that's exactly what she's doing. Article on a Substack, which you can find at Christopher Rufo, R-U-F-O, ChristopherRufo.com. Kamala Harris's plagiarism problem. The vice president appears to have airlifted sections of her book, Smart on Crime, which it's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard of as far as the name of a book, considering that she has been the most helpful person when it comes to true criminals. Criminals absolutely adore her, unless they smoked pot, in which case they don't, because that was like the ultimate. Or if they, you know, their kids were truants because they were, you know, having operations or anything like that, or the moms were having operations, you know, that's jail worthy to Kamala. Murder, on the other hand, not so much. Okay, rape, child sex trafficking. She's all about that. You're A-okay in her book if you are a murderer or a child sex trafficker. Anyway, according to this article, Kamala Harris has become famous in part for her unique rhetorical style. She switches freely between various accents and peppers her speeches with catchphrases, pondering fallout out of a coconut tree, discussing the significance of the passage of time, and moving the nation toward what can be, unburdened by what has been. To her supporters, the vice president's rhetorical flourishes represent the values of compassion and optimism. To her detractors, her reliance on platitudes and tautologies demonstrates her unfitness for the presidency. But as we have discovered in this exclusive report, another element appears to exist within Kamala Harris's rhetorical universe: plagiarism. At the beginning of Harris's political career, in the run-up to her campaign to serve as California's Attorney General, she and co-author Joan O.C. Hamilton published a small volume entitled Smart on Crime, A Career Prosecutor's Plan to Make Us Safer. The book helped to establish her credibility on criminal justice issues. However, according to Stefan Weber, a famed Austrian plagiarism hunter who has taken down politicians in the German-speaking world, Harris's book contains more than a dozen vicious plagiarism fragments. Some of the passages he highlighted appear to contain minor transgressions, reproducing small sections, insufficient, yada, 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 but others seem to reflect more serious infractions, similar in severity to the President's doctoral thesis. Harris did not respond to a request for comment about these. Let's consider a section of this excerpt from Harris's book, beginning with one in which Harris discusses high school graduation rates. She lifted verbatim language from an uncited NBC News report with a duplicate material marked in italics, which pretty much almost the entire thing is in italics. You know, it's almost worse, by the way. I would actually rather see the entire thing just lifted completely instead of, and the whole thing be in italics, than for her to change a few words and pawn it off as her own. In Detroit's public schools, only 25% of the students who enrolled in grade 9 graduated from high school, while 30.5% graduated in Indianapolis public schools and 34% received diplomas in the Cleveland Municipal City High School District. Overall, and they did add that, that word overall is not in italics. About 70% of the, and the word the is also not in italics. So they added overall and the word the to this sentence. Overall, about 70% of the U.S. students graduate from public and private schools on time with a regular diploma, and about 1.2 million students drop out annually. Only about half of the students served by public school systems in the nation's largest cities receive diplomas. Oh, but wait, there's more. In another section of the book, Harris, without proper attribution, reproduced extensive sections from a John Jay College of Criminal Justice press release. She and her co-author passed off the language as their own, copying multiple paragraphs virtually verbatim. Here is the excerpt with the airlifted materials in italics and abbreviations, such as percentages and state names treated as verbatim substitutions. And it's funny that it comes from the John Jay College of Criminal Justice, which of course embraces a federalist mentality. But hey, sometimes we've seen it throughout her entire career, where if she wants to sound good, she just pulls from conservatives, Republicans, limited government folks. When she wants to express her real thoughts, she pulls from Bernie Sanders, or even left of Bernie Sanders. Unfortunately, she doesn't really ever express her real thoughts because I just don't think she has any. Let's skip ahead. To make matters worse, in duplicating Wikipedia's language, Harris seemed to have missed critical information and misstated a relevant detail. She claims in prose identical to the online encyclopedia that illegal vending was down 24% as a result of the court's policies. Early in the paragraphs, Harris cited the Bureau of Justice Assistance report to substantiate the figure. But she made a mistake on Wikipedia. The 24% figure was apparently tied to a different report. So not only is she plagiarizing, but she's plagiarizing badly. She's pulling bad data from there and using that, pawning that as her own bad data. So I guess there's that. If she's going to plagiarize other people, she might as well try to make sure that what she's plagiarizing is correct and accurate before committing the crime of plagiarism. If you're watching on Frank's Speech, then I will bid you adieu, and we will see you, Lord willing, again tomorrow. If you're watching on my Rumble channel at jdrucker.com/rumble, stay tuned. We're going to take a short break, and we will be right back. The election is nearly upon us. Will there be any major October surprises yet to be unleashed? We will see. One thing people always ask me, because they know I've now apparently built up a reputation as being knowledgeable about gold and silver and retirement accounts and all that good stuff. People ask me which is going to be better for gold and silver, Trump or Kamala. And I said, look, number one, don't take that into consideration, because either will be good for gold. Lest we forget, gold jumped up like 51% during Trump's first term. So don't say, oh, well, if Trump wins, it's going to be bad for gold. That's not true. That's just not true. There's a reason why analysts, even with Trump projected to win, there's a reason why analysts are still looking at gold hitting $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 per ounce, possibly in the future. Now, I'm not an economic advisor, so I'm not going to try to give you advice, but I will tell you this, that there are many, many Americans who are moving their wealth, their retirement, their life's savings to physical precious metals. And the one company that you should do that with, in my humble opinion, is Genesis Gold Group. This is a faith-driven company. Okay, I can't get around that. This is they are unabashedly faith-driven. They're unabashedly America first. These guys aren't rooting for Kamala, even though Kamala, yes, will Kamala be good for gold in the short term? You betcha. Will she be good for the economy long term? Absolutely not. Not even short term, not at all. So that's why they're like, you know what? We Trump. Believe it or not, a lot of the gold companies that these conservative show hosts are promoting, they back the Democrats. I know that sounds crazy, but they do, because it behooves them when Democrats are in office. So check out Genesis Gold Group. You can go to my personal website for them at jdrgold.com. That's JDRgold.com. You'll get a free wealth protection kit, a gold guide, the definitive 2025 gold guide. You'll get all this stuff. So check it out, JDRgold.com. There's one massive challenge with the Democrats' talking points, their ideology, everything they've been pushing, really ever since, and we can take it all the way back to the Obama days, but it really, like, that was more planting the seed for cultural Marxism. We really have to go fast forward to the Trump years. And I'm not talking about anything that Trump did, just Trump's presence was enough for the left to go complete and utterly unhinged. I mean, to completely lose their minds. I don't know if it was Trump derangement syndrome. I don't know if there was some weird strategy that said, hey, you know, we couldn't beat Trump with a moderate with Hillary Clinton, so we need to be more radicalized and all this other stuff. I don't know. I don't know what the thinking was. I do know that there was at least this out. They were at the very least influenced by demonic forces. Okay, you can't, like this, we've seen the indoctrination. You see it every day. You see people, if you go out, you see people that are walking amongst us who truly, in their hearts, they believe that if you don't want a 6'4" dude to be spiking a volleyball on a 5'4" female athlete, if you're against that, then you're the bigot. I mean, there are people that surround us every day that are truly brainwashed, full-blown brainwashed, and I would say demonically so. Okay, they have completely lost their minds. And so the question becomes, how do we address that? Because here's the thing. We might be able to wake some people up with the economy. It's always about the economy, and we can start to wake some people up, but if the Kamala Harris campaign has done one thing right, it's that they've somehow brainwashed enough people into thinking that they can somehow fix the economy, even though they broke the economy. It's kind of like, you know, we've seen it. This isn't anything new. We've seen it over the decades, especially in local elections. Democrat-run cities continue to vote for Democrats, despite the fact that they run, these Democrats in Chicago, Baltimore, LA, wherever, they run on the notion, when they're a new candidate, they run on the notion that, hey, things are really bad under the last Democrat, but we can make things better. We're the new Democrats. We can make things better. And they've been doing this over and over again for decades. And then when it's the same Democrats, they're like, hey, we just need more time to make things better, right? I mean, that's how they get reelected. It's like failure after failure after failure after failure, and yet they can keep this racket going for decades. So it should be no surprise that the economy, even though it should be the one of the two blatantly obvious answers for Republicans to be able to reach Democrats, for the Trump campaign to be able to reach the left, and not just Trump campaign, but any conservatives candidates out there. That should be the solution. But again, they're good at gaslighting. They, being the Democrats, are good at gaslighting people into, yes, we know the economy is bad and we're going to fix it. Well, why didn't you fix it already? Don't worry, we're going to fix it this time. I can't even wrap my head around that degree of cognitive dissonance that is required for Democrats to continue to make the same exact mistake over and over and over again. Now, there's fewer of them this time, but I don't think it's because of the economy. That's part of it. But I think the main reason there's fewer, and it seems that Trump is starting to pick up so much more support, is because of the illegal alien problem. People realize that borders are Harris, no matter how much she claims, and corporate media and fact checkers claim that she was never the borders are. She was the borders are. They know that. They also know that she's not offering any solutions that are different from what she was offering and what she did as the borders are, as Vice President of the United States. So that issue is a winner. It is starting to get some people that, you know what, I'm against Republicans, I'm against Trump, but man, that border crisis, that's bad. This is an invasion. We got to stop it. We'll just go Republican just this one time. Okay. So you are getting some play there, but there is another play. And I believe that play is one that, you know, in these last 3 weeks or so, I think it's a play that might be able to move some hearts, move some minds. We've already seen that this is the lowest and lower than expected early voting turnout. That's good. That means people are still keeping their options open. We need to make sure to close the door on those options. We need to make sure that they hop on board, come on in, even if it's just this one time, come on in, and let's fix this, and then you can go back to being all sorts of leftist. And that issue, to me, is what Scott Jennings over at CNN expressed to his apoplectic colleagues. Watch.
It was a rough week. I mean, her faves are down. They're struggling with, the front page of the New York Times this morning, Democrats struggling with African-American voters, particularly African-American men. This gender gap issue is real. It's a real problem, and you see the Democrats reacting to it. And I think what they are now finally in October, the election, coming to realize is that a lot of men think Democrats care more about dudes who want to become women than dudes who just want to be dudes. And no hunting, cosplay, or cringy videos is going to change it. The bet is made. Working class men, whether you're black, Hispanic, or white, persistently, consistently do not believe the Democratic Party, and specifically Kamala Harris, are going to do a thing for them. They've been told that they're the problem, and I suspect they're going to rise up on Election Day and tell the elites who told them that you're wrong.
Well, let's hope he's right. Let's hope that people are finally starting to wake up to the scam, the con of diversity, inclusivity, and equity, or as we call it over at thelibertydaily.com, DIE. It's a failed series of policies. It's all there is to it. They have failed. They did not achieve their goals, as is the case with the vast majority of these new age radical leftist worldviews, ideologies, policies that have been coming out really again since the Obama years. Obama was the seed, but it was during Trump's years that they started embracing these stupid things, and then during Biden and Kamala Harris's years that they started actually enacting them. Okay, defund the police. Everybody, every Democrat, and at least half of the independents and a shocking number of Republicans were all about, we got to defund the police. What happened to George Floyd? This would never have happened if we defunded the police. It's the stupidest thing ever. The concept was stupid. The promotion of it was stupid, but the stupidest thing is that people bought into it. Okay? There was actually a whole bunch of people that bought into it. And it became policies in a lot of places, and those policies are starting to reverse. They've been reversing for a little while. Why? Because they failed miserably. Crime didn't go down. Crime went up. Crime shot up in a lot of places. People felt unsafe. They still do, and rightly so, because they're not safe at all. So you don't hear a whole lot of Democrat politicians or bureaucrats talking about defunding the police anymore. Go figure. What about open borders? They said, you know what, if we just need to be kind and understanding and let these asylum seekers in. They just want safety and security. They want to live the American dream. Why should we hog it to ourselves? Well, what's happened is that it has, as things often do with leftist ideologies, it has reversed. The American dream is being realized by a lot of these illegal aliens. Just fewer and fewer and fewer actual American citizens are able to realize it because of the open borders, amongst other things. But that's been, I would say, the biggest driving force. Jobs disappearing, money disappearing, homes, hotel rooms. Don't even get me started. You don't need to hear it because you've already heard it and it's already infuriated you. But other people that you know do need to hear it. Your relatives, your friends, your colleagues, your whoever, they need to understand that this concept that we'll be able to make things better for anybody by opening the borders and letting in quote-unquote asylum seekers, despite the fact that asylum rules do not apply to 99.99% of the people that come over. The vast majority of illegal aliens do not qualify for asylum. They qualify to apply for asylum, and then the asylum system loses them over the years and decades. So it's kind of like asylum, de facto asylum by default. But it's not supposed to happen. Be rejected. If we just kept stay in Mexico, then sure. I mean, they know, but they don't think, oh, well, they'll break asylum rules for me as an economic migrant. These aliens are coming for the money. They're coming for the opportunity to have free drugs, I'm talking about free pharmaceuticals and medical, not necessarily free drugs, though we don't know, that's probably being given to them as well. Free dogs, free cats. So that's been a failure. But then arguably the biggest failure that nobody wants to talk about, because to talk about it would be bigoted or discriminatory or the R word. It would be racist. Racist to say such things as this soft on crime mentality from the left has not resulted in a reduction in crime. It has made crime far worse than it was before. There's no longer fear of repercussion in states such as California, cities such as Chicago or New York. If you are committing, say, a white-collar crime, and let's say that you are a white male, straight white male, you have a much greater chance of being convicted and jailed for an extended period of time than if you are an illegal alien murderer, or if you go and you commit violent acts as a person of color. Things have again reversed. And if you think that sounds racist, I'm talking statistically. I'm talking about not just, oh, well, look, there's crime and blah, blah, blah. I'm not talking about anecdotal data. I'm talking about real data. The real data shows that crime, especially in areas where leftist policies have been enacted, such as California, such as Chicago, such as New York City, areas where woke criminal policies are enacted, that's where crime is skyrocketing. It didn't work the way that they claimed it was going to work. They said if you're understanding, if we're just more inclusive, more diverse, more equitable, then everybody's going to be happier. But the narrative has changed now. Now it's about, now you see, and they're falling just shy of actually saying it, but what they're implying, they being the radical left, what they're implying is that this sharp rise in crime in these urban areas is essentially a form of reparations. No, that's not how it works. That's not how any of it should work. But it is. That's what's happening. For those of us who are living in areas where this is happening, we need a wake-up call. And for those of us who aren't living in areas where this is happening, you still need a wake-up call. You need to make sure that you don't fall into the same con that we did. And unfortunately, here in about 3 weeks, Americans are going to be asked to make a decision. I'm not going to get into the whole potential for voter shenanigans here. That's a different story for a different day. I'm saying when it comes to actual legal votes being cast, actual legal ballots being counted once, if we look at all of that, then we being those who support Donald Trump, we should be winning by a landslide. It needs to be a huge landslide, much bigger than we thought it could possibly be. And to get there, we need to adopt Donald Trump's mentality of believe no matter what the polls say, no matter what the pundits say, no matter what Tucker Carlson or Jake Tapper or J.D. Rucker say, the thought is this: we're up by 1 point. We need to fight like hell to win. That's it. We're up by 1 point. I don't care where you are. You need to adopt this mentality. We're up by 1 point. And we need to make sure that applies to down ballot races, especially local races. You want to know who has the most effect, the most impact on your life? It's not President Trump or, God forbid, President Harris. It's not Congress or Senate. It's not the Supreme Court. It's not even your governor. The people who have the most impact, the people in government who have the most impact on your life, are the people at the city and county levels. They have a direct impact on you. So why don't you know all their names? You should. You should know who you support. You should know why you support them. You should have met them and talked to them by now and decided if they do deserve your support or not. And if they do deserve your support, then you should be out there explaining to other people why they deserve their support. But then, beyond that, you still have the city and county and state races that you have to address, and those are important, which is why, again, I don't care if you are in Wyoming, okay? We're up by 1 point. I don't care if you are in California. We're up by 1 point. We have a chance everywhere, and we could lose anywhere. It's going to come down to you and me. And anybody that you can talk to and anybody I can talk to, we're the only ones who can save this nation. Now, in reality, obviously, there's only one who can save this nation, and that is God Almighty. But it's not ours to sit back and just say, okay, God, it's in your hands. You do what you need to do. We are active participants. It's above our pay grade to decide what our role is in God's plan. We just know that we want to be part of it. So, we're up by 1 point. Keep fighting. Fight the good fight. And then pray. Pray that God delivers us from the evils of the Democrat Party, the uniparty swamp, I should say. Lord willing, I will be back very soon with another episode. But in the meantime, you all stay strong, stay safe, and God bless. For the last, 4 years, coincidentally lining up with the Biden-Harris regime, for the last 4 years, it has made sense to a whole bunch of Americans to move their wealth or their retirement over to physical precious metals. This is a good thing. Okay, and I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm just telling you that it's happening. A lot of Americans are doing it, and they know why they're doing it. You know, between de-dollarization, inflation, the potential for recession, everything that's going on, the turmoil that's going to come with the presidential election, regardless of who wins, by the way, there's going to be economic turmoil before, during, and after the election. We know this. This is coming. So a lot of people are trying to find the higher ground of physical precious metals. The challenge there is that not all gold companies are made the same. Look, I know that you might seem like they are. It seems like, everybody's got their conservative commentators that promote them. The difference between me and these other conservative commentators and show hosts and whatever is that I actually did my research. And unfortunately, I've come to the conclusion that the other ones could not have, because if they did, many of them, not 100%, but a lot of them, if they did their research, if they knew exactly what they were promoting, there was no way they would touch these companies with a 10-foot pole. A lot of these companies are promoting their gold and silver, but they're doing so at huge markups. I mean, we're talking sometimes over 100% markup on the gold and silver they're putting into gold IRAs. I work with a faith-driven company, Genesis Gold Group, and they do not charge enormous premiums on top of the gold in order to get you your $10,000 in free silver or whatever gimmick is being pushed. They just deal with you directly, honestly, from a faith-driven perspective. This is the only company I've ever seen in the industry that actually will sit there and pray with you. So check them out. See if they can help you. Go to rumblegold.com, and see what Genesis Gold Group can do for you today.